Welcome to Open Source Friday. Open Source Friday is of course Friday, but it's a day that we get to sit and chat with open source maintainers, contributors of the like, to talk about just that, which is open source. And today we got a special guest today, which is Shedrack, Coder Black on Twitter. Welcome, Shedrack. How you doing?
Hey, Brian. Nice to be here. Hi,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah. So Cloud Foundry, what are we working with today?
Cloud Foundry is basically an open source platform as a service that you basically install on your infrastructure. Think Heroku, but probably open source. And this time you have so much control over it, and it's on whatever infrastructure of your choice. So that's basically what Cloud Foundry is. It's a cloud native open source platform as a service. Yeah, sure
Um,
thing.
if you don't mind, could you walk us through what you're working with and what Cloud Foundry has to offer?
Yeah. So I'm basically going to be deploying a simple application. So this application is from one of MDM to Mozilla Document Network. So I'm going to be playing one of their sample tutorials on Cloud Foundry with GitHub Actions. So we're basically going to automate the whole deployment process so that whenever we make a push to that particular repo, it triggers a GitHub action and it deploys our application to Kubernetes through Cloud Foundry. Now, this is possible because of the Cloud Foundry for Kubernetes project, which is basically bringing the Cloud Foundry developer experience to Kubernetes. Is basically an abstracting over the Cloud Foundry over Kubernetes and making it easier for developers to for developers to deploy stuff to Kubernetes. So that's basically what I'm going to be showing today. And currently, I have my Cloud Foundry for Kubernetes cluster deployed on Google Cloud. So it's basically has some certain requirements. So I think a 4 node cluster, 8 gig of RAM, etc. So I currently have that installed. And yeah, so let's just get started. I don't know if you can see my screen.
Yep. Yeah, we're definitely looking
Yeah,
at your screen too as well.
okay, so you can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay. So basically, currently I have my Cloud Foundry for Kubernetes cluster installed on Google Cloud, and I've also connected the GitHub Container Registry as my preferred container registry. You can also use Docker if you want, but for this particular demo, I am using the GitHub Container Registry. So I'm just going to log into that cluster. So I've also connected. So there's an API endpoint that you can connect to from it's basically going to be generated for you whenever you deploy on whatever infrastructure that you decided to use. And for this demo, I'm using the Google Cloud and the
Okay.
GK generally.
Yeah, I was going to
So
ask if this was Cloud Foundry was hosting your stuff in the cloud for you, or but you actually mentioned Google Cloud is you're using Google Cloud under the hood to be able to have this hosted.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can install on whatever infrastructure that you want. We also have our specific. We have a bunch of distributors, distributions generally that are using Cloud Foundry under the hood. So there's IBM Cloud Foundry, there's SUSE, there's also VMware Tanzu. So if you want to like deploy on something that Cloud Foundry has to do with generally without going to DigitalOcean, Google Cloud, etc. So you can just decide to use those over distributions.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, because I've got some things I deploy to Azure, and I'm not
Yeah.
using Kubernetes. I'm actually deploying to one cloud and one server, but I'd love to have that deployed to multiple servers for the benefit of the CDN.
Yeah, sure, you can do that. So I currently have this application running. I'm just going to show my VS Code. So can you see my VS Code?
Yep, we got that.
Yeah. So the process is really, really simple. That's the beauty of like having Cloud Foundry on your infrastructure. I'm using Cloud Foundry in general. It's really, really simple. So the way it's to basically create the way you create a random action, a random GitHub action. So the GitHub profile folder, then inside the workflows folder, then do a main.yaml. Now, the name of this action is deploy using actions. Then on push branch, these are all like GitHub Actions lingo. Now the job, we just have one job, which is we need the action to always to basically deployment should trigger whenever we make a push to that part, to the repo that this project is on. So we're using, of course, Ubuntu as our preferred system. Now, this particular action uses a already published GitHub action, which was created by my colleague. So this is going to be called the CFCLI action. We're going to be using that. You can decide to clone it and use it yourself, or you can decide to just copy and paste it somewhere and use it. So there's really there's an MIT licensed project, so you really there's no privacy or whatever or intellectual property on it. And so it's simple. The action has, to use this action, you just need to provide certain details, like a bunch of details. So the CF API, which is the API endpoint that I showed you, hold on, sorry about that. So I showed you here. So this is what we are using, but this is not exactly what I'm using because I changed it before the demo. Of course, we cannot specify certain secrets on our project because of security reasons. So of course, the CF API, like I specified in in the secrets in my GitHub project, then the username, then the password, then these organizations are basically role-based access control protocols, like just how it is in Kubernetes, but as sort of like different. So we have orgs, organizations, and spaces, just like the way Kubernetes, regular Kubernetes have like roles and namespaces, etc. So that's how it is here. So the organization I have here is, of course, sample organization, and the space, which is specifically for just me, is dev. Then the command. So what Cloud Foundry offers you is you can deploy to Kubernetes with a single command, which is the CF push, then your application name. So the command here would push our application to a Cloud Foundry cluster and then deploy it on Kubernetes, and as easy as that. So this is basically every single thing you need to do to actually create a GitHub action that can help you to deploy your stuff to your project to Cloud Foundry as easy as it's really that easy. So let me just see if I can trigger a deployment. So I'm just going to make a simple change to this to this project. So for the benefits of the viewers, this is actually a project from Mozilla. It's one of their tutorials, and I just cloned it and deployed it to Cloud Foundry. It's that simple. I don't know if I can show how it looks like. So this is how it's just basically a library. It's a local library built with Express and Node.js. So you can see all books, you can see authors, you can see general, you can also add, etc. So that's how the application looks like. Yep. Now, if I come here, if I come to my VS Code and make a simple change to maybe add a new color or something. So let's come to views and maybe do something really, really simple. So let's just say, let's give this a H3 tag. Let's give this a H3 tag, then save it. Now, whenever we push this to GitHub, it should, according to what we specify in our action, it should automatically start the deployment to Cloud Foundry. So if I come here and I do my Git status and see, okay, this has been modified according to Git, then I do a Git add, then I do a Git commit, then let's say updates. Let's just call this an update, name this an update. Then we do Git push. So when we do a Git push, this should, so these are like aliases I created on my machine. Yeah. So when I do a Git push, it should automatically start the deployment, fingers crossed. So if I go to my GitHub, if I go to GitHub here, I should see
one of the actions triggered on the Actions tab.
Yeah. So as you can see here, it has automatically triggered the action. So let's check what the action is doing. Let's walk through that. Let's see the whole process. So the action is actually 4 jobs. So it basically uses I would explain this as when it finishes running. And so it basically uses it first starts with installing the Cloud Foundry CLI based on what the action that my colleague has created that we're using. Then of course checks out, basically makes the project available on this on this environment, then we do a CF push. So it's that simple. So the first thing the action does is to set up the job, which is like same thing for all GitHub Actions. Then build RAM demos, which is basically creating a container based on the Docker file in that action that I'm using that my colleague has created, that you can also use. So it's just like a Docker file and doing exactly what the Docker file has like specified, which is basically to install the Cloud Foundry CLI version 7 to make it available here so that we can do a safe push. That's why we need the Cloud Foundry CLI in this particular environment. So it basically does that. Then the next thing, of course, is to check out. So make this repository available for, for reading and writing in this particular environment. Then next would be to, now you see, as you can see, our job is completed already. Now, I don't know, it took a minute and 33 seconds to, deploy the whole thing, to check out, for the entire job to run and deploy to Cloud Foundry. So that's how fast it can actually deploy any application, if I'm not mistaken, any application. So the next thing is to look at what this particular action is doing, the action we are using in our project, what it's doing. So the first thing it does here is to export all these things we've specified in our GitHub secrets. It basically matches it to the command we specify. So the CF API, it checks and gets it from the CF secrets that we specified, the username, the org, the space, etc. Now the command. So let's walk through the whole process. So the first thing it does here is to connect to the API endpoint so it can have access to the cluster we've created, which is really, really important. It cannot do anything if this particular step fails, the entire job will fail. So it has to connect to the API endpoint so it can have access to the cluster we've installed on GKE. Now the next thing would be to package the files. Now, so Cloud Foundry has a way of detecting the type of application you deployed using what we call Buildpacks. So Buildpacks basically create an application runtime for your project. So whatever dependencies you may need, whatever environments you may need to deploy for the dependencies of your application to install successfully, Cloud Foundry helps you with that. So for this project, a Node.js project, you do not need to upload your Node modules folder to Cloud Foundry. It does not need that. Yeah, it does not need. That's why the deployment is fast. So immediately you do a CF push, and the build pack is triggered, which is the Node.js build pack. It then checks for certain files. For example, if you use Yarn, it checks for your Yarn lock file, and it also checks for your package.json. These are the two things it needs to complete your entire build, for the entire build to happen.
That's in the Cloud Foundry side, not in the Docker file?
Yeah, the Cloud Foundry side. This is done by the Cloud Foundry with build packs. Yeah. So when it does that, when it has found when Cloud Foundry has found, with the help of Buildpack, has found those two files, it then begins to specify certain things that are needed for it to run. For example, it installs npm, uses the npm build pack. There's also an npm build pack and a yarn build pack under the Node.js build pack. So if you use yarn, it uses the yarn build pack. If you use npm, it uses the npm build pack, and begins to create commands, run commands like npm run dev, npm start, npm build, etc. Just so based on what is in your package.json. That's why it always checks for your package.json file. Now, the next thing to do here is to package your file and upload it to the Cloud Foundry API for deployment. Now, this is where the GitHub Container Registry comes into place. So if you've used the GitHub Container Registry, you would know that this particular URL here belongs to the GitHub Container Registry. So it basically pulls every single thing needed in the GitHub container from the GitHub Container Registry and makes it available in this environment. So we don't need to do, we just need to configure the GitHub Container Registry for this, and it would happen. So
real quick, that's when I explained that the GitHub Container Registry is it's a feature on GitHub that we've shipped in the last year or so. And I just wanted to point out that, folks, if you are using containers or are building packages, it is a feature for you that we'd love your feedback on.
Yeah, it's a really, really great step for GitHub, to be honest, and it's been really, really easy to use, and it's really, really easy to get started with. So I have specified this. So for this particular situation, I could decide to use Docker Container Registry, but I'm specifically using GitHub, and this particular thing can be set whenever you're installing whenever you're installing that's Cloud Foundry for Kubernetes on any infrastructure of your choice. If there's time, I would show a file where you see how I specified, this particular where I specify, okay, use the GitHub Container Registry here. So if there's time. So the next thing it does is, since it has discovered the package.json file and maybe my package log.json file, it has now instructed the build pack, okay, this is the build packs we want to use. So the Node Engine build pack, the npm install build and the npm start, because we're using npm. So the next thing to do now is to start the whole process. The next thing, after starting the process, it detects our node version. Now, node version is very, very important, because there are certain types of features that are not available in a particular node version that's available in this node version. So if you have specific needs for a particular node version, you need to specify your engine, the node engine, in your package.json file. So Cloud Foundry can use that node version. Otherwise, Cloud Foundry will use the default, its default node engine, which is probably the latest most of the time. So we don't really need to see this most of the time. Now, as you can see here, the build is successful. After the build is successful, the command specified here will now be used to start our application, which is what Cloud Foundry is doing here. Now, waiting for app, express library, a local library tutorial to start. Now, the instances here are starting. Then immediately the application starts, all of this here becomes available for you to see. So the name of our application, the requested state, which is started, the this isolation segment, you do not necessarily need to fill it. Then the routes here. Now, this route is very, very important, because this is where we can find our application running live on the internet. So we need a link to see a preview of our application. This is where we can find it. Now, if you've noticed, this here is our API endpoint. So this is the API endpoint we connected to when we're starting the whole process.
So at the link itself is generated by, is this also generated by Google Cloud and added by
by Cloud Foundry.
Okay, gotcha. So is Cloud Foundry doing handling the routing, or being sort of the consumer of that?
Yeah, it's doing the routing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So the next thing here is, of course, specify, if you are using any specific build pack, it's to specify it. And of course, the process type is a web version. Then the start command, which is the command you use to start the application. This is also the amount of memory it's using. So it's I think this is a 1 gig. It's using basically 1 gig. You can specify the type of amount of memory you actually want your application to use in what we call a manifest.yml file. So if there are certain specific needs you need for your application to run well, maybe you need it to deploy a particular folder in your application, you can use a manifest.yml file, then specify the folder that you want it to actually deploy from. Then if you also have a specific build pack that you're using, maybe you have you want it to immediately use the Node.js build pack, you can also specify it in the manifest.yml file. But the aim really is to make sure that you do not have to write a YAML file for your deployment. Now, as you can see, the application here is currently running, and to see this application running live, we need to copy this. So I'm just going to copy this, then come to my a new tab and just paste it. Yeah, so this is basically our application deployed live on Cloud Foundry. It's that simple. So whenever I make a change, whenever I make any single change here, it automatically triggers a build, and that build would trigger the GitHub Actions, and from GitHub Actions, this helps us to deploy application to Cloud Foundry. So that's how the whole process works. This is how you can automate your deployment to Kubernetes process with GitHub Actions. It's that simple. You do not need to do any specific, any stressful 100 lines of YAML to do this, to do these things yourself. Yeah. Whenever you push to GitHub, you can automatically trigger a deployments to Cloud Foundry. So
Yeah,
that's pretty
I
much
like that
it.
because it's democratizing the sort of knowledge based around Kubernetes. Like I don't have enough skill set to, or even knowledge to be able to build this myself. Yeah, and what about community? Is there a
Yeah,
have
so
some
if
sort
you
of
want to join the Cloud Foundry community, the best way to get involved is actually to, go to the Cloud Foundry Slack, which is slack.cloudfoundry.org, and you can just easily create an account and get there are different channels based on what you want to do. And for example, now for if you are like the specific tutorial that you want to talk about, you can go to the channel Cloud Foundry tutorial. So slack.cloudfoundry.org would give you access to the Cloud Foundry Slack, where there's like a ton of people and that sharing ideas and like answering each other's questions. So that's really the best place that you can get involved in the Cloud Foundry community. And there's also if you also want to like get more ideas, there's the Cloud Foundry Summit is coming up. So if you want to like join the Cloud Foundry community, you want to learn more about people in the community, like breaking through ideas like happening in the Cloud Foundry community, you can easily just go to join the Cloud Foundry Summits and just listening. There are always great talks there. People from like various parts of the world and also various companies. We probably have people from VMware, people from like IBM, people from Any9s, etc. Like cloud native tech experts, DevOps experts, like from various parts of the world that will come together to talk about Cloud Foundry and DevOps in general.
Yeah, so actually let me share my screen. Shadrach and I actually chatted on my other place I do stuff, which is Jamstack Radio. So audio forum, but we talked about Cloud Foundry, and I feel like I learned a lot in this conversation, but now seeing it in action, I know so much more now, and I know exactly what I'm going to be using it for in the future. So again, thanks for taking the time, and
Yeah,
folks,
sure thing. Always
uh,
happy to demo Cloud Foundry. Always
yeah. And
happy.
I'll just shout out everybody follow Shadrach on Twitter, Coder Black on Twitter. There's the handle right in the lower right, as well as follow this channel, follow the YouTube. We're gonna be making some changes in the next couple of weeks too, as well, and how we sort of announce the new stream. So following this channel will be the easiest way. But if you follow the GitHub community Twitter channel, we're going to start tweeting from there as well as in the support community, so github.community as well. And we'll have a place for y'all to meet the maintainers and contributors of projects, as well as, of course, start the projects. That would be a great opportunity for you to engage and show the appreciation as well. So